Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Just think about it. This Friday, Rosh Chodesh Adar, means it's 6 weeks to Pesach. Yeah, think about that one for a second. La Shabbat, we had it easy. We only had 10 commandments. This week, however, in Parshat Mishpatim, as we read this morning, we get an additional 53 commandments. And what are these 53? They cover everything imaginable, including how to treat our slaves, the types of restitution we're entitled to if we are injured, to give special care to widows, to orphans, to help the poor. We do so through charity or loans, to which we're not allowed to charge interest. We may not ask for repayment, particularly when we know that the borrower is unable to pay. And if we were to take his clothing as collateral, we must return it in the daytime so that the borrower may be able to go to work and wear it. If we take a mattress as collateral, we must return it in the evening so that the borrower can sleep. If we see our enemy's donkey being burdened, we must take steps to help ease that burden. Sounds good, right? Sounds like we're doing the right thing. But this morning I don't want to talk about these laws. Rather, I want to talk about the Jewish values that exist behind the laws, specifically the Jewish identity. You see, no matter how you look at these laws, which we read about, all the laws in the Torah, for that matter, no matter if we observe them 100% or not at all, or anywhere in between, maintaining and exhibiting our Jewish identity is of critical importance and part of living a just and righteous Jewish life. And that is what the Torah is actually asking us to do. Now, I bring this up in light of something that we learned from the death many years ago of the former mayor of New York City, Ed Koch. Anybody remember Ed Koch? Sure, exactly, sure. He was quite the individual. On his tombstone, he left an instruction to be engraved, the famous last words of murdered journalist Daniel Pearl, Alav Shalom. My father is Jewish, my mother is Jewish, I am Jewish. As Koch said, he chose those words, along with the Star of David and the Shema, because he was very proud of his Jewish identity. He even believed that those words should be part of the services of Yom Kippur and should be repeated by the congregation. Now, for those of us who knew Ed Koch, we know that he was not particularly a religious Jew. By his own admission, he didn't keep kosher. He only attended services twice a year. And despite that, that's what he chose for his tombstone. But he's also buried in Trinity Church, not even in a Jewish cemetery. Now, I bring this up because no matter his failure to live his life observing the details of the 613 mitzvot, he certainly tried to, in his public life, at least observe and live up to the values inherent in those commandments. And again, perhaps most importantly, however, he always made sure that this value of Jewish identity never left him. He said that young people no longer understand the meaning of the Holocaust. young Jews don't understand that when Hitler offered to let the Jews out of Germany, there was no nation that would take them, including at that point the United States. Somehow or other, the Jewish community has to educate and say, we're Americans, or in our case, we're Canadians. But we also are like any other people. We're like any other people that love our ancestry and our traditions. And in our case, it's even more important because there's never been an effort to exterminate a people, a whole people. As within our case, it was Hitler and the Jews. Jews who think that they're not included in that extermination effort, should it even occur again, couldn't be more wrong. And we know that the nation of Israel, Be'ezrat Hashem, will stand up to the best of its ability to protect the Jewish world. It will use its armed forces to protect its Jews, as it has done throughout its history. As one obituary of Koch put it, more than that, in a very large way, Ed Koch symbolized the maturation of American Jews in the second half of the 20th century. No longer the insecurity and the uncertainty of the pre-World War II era. Jews are now fully fledged, equal citizens, and they can stand up for what they truly believe in. This was particularly true with regard to Israel. He never hesitated to label anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. In these kinds of things, nuance was for others. And he spoke bluntly. In his eyes, those who were attacking Israel were motivated by nothing else than blatant anti-Semitism. And you cannot couch it in anti-Zionism. When it came to Jewish issues, Koch got it. Jews were now fully fledged equal citizens. For Koch, there was no uncertainty or insecurity. Say what's on your mind, stand with America, and stand with Israel, in his case. And we can certainly easily substitute Canada for America and not lose sight of the same message. And when asked how he wanted to be remembered, he replied, I want to be remembered as being a proud Jew who loved the people of the city of New York and did his best to make their lives better. And as his tombstone goes on to say, he defined himself in this order: a proud Jew, a loving New Yorker, and a patriotic American. Mishpatim. Mishpatim. No. Identity? Absolutely. He symbolized for us that no matter our level of observance, we all have an obligation to maintain that Jewish identity and do so publicly. Because today, in this world, what could be more important value which we take away from Parshat Mishpatim? And this value can be demonstrated as well even by those who are more observant, as more than Koch was, as I'm now going to demonstrate. A leading Orthodox rabbi, Rabbi Benjamin Blech, told the following story in response to some of the criticism over Koch's burial plans. A number of years ago, his daughter, Blech's daughter, was applying to law school. Having gotten a perfect score on her LAT exam, she sat nervous about getting admitted to a top law school. But she knew that she also had to write an essay explaining why she had chosen law as a career and defining herself as a person. As Rabbi Blech began to read his daughter's essay, he found himself filled with apprehension. Her opening words in that essay was, "I am an Orthodox Jew." She continued by linking the Jewish love for law with its divine origin at Sinai. She explained that her love for Torah made her seek the betterment of the world through a commitment to legal redress for the innocent and the lawful punishment for the criminal. And despite her well-written words, Rabbi Blech was afraid because he was part of a generation that still bore the emotional scars of centuries of anti-Semitism. He was afraid that because even though he now lived in the land of the free and the home of the brave, he still didn't feel enough to believe that his daughter could be openly and willingly identifiable as an Orthodox Jew without subjecting herself to the potential repercussions. Rabbi Blech therefore advised his daughter not to submit the essay. But like any good child, she didn't listen to her father's advice. She concluded she had to be true to herself. And she decided that if by identifying herself through her faith, she was closing the door to professional advancement, she would rather not enter those portals. And who knows, she added, perhaps the fact that I take pride in my heritage will perhaps be viewed as a positive. As it turned out, the essay did not hurt his daughter. She was accepted to every law school which she applied for. But there's more. You see, some years later, Rabbi Blech was teaching a class at Yeshiva University when a former student of his knocked on the door. Out of breath, he told Rabbi Blech that he had rushed up from Columbia University Law School because he had had to share the story of what had just happened in one of his classes. The conversation had turned into a discussion about the required essays. And someone asked the professor, "Now that we're in the school, can you tell us what exactly you were looking for in those essays?" And the professor responded that he couldn't really put it into words, but he could only give a general guidance by referencing what he felt was the best essay that he had ever received. And he recalled that it was the one written by a girl with a very strange last name, very difficult to pronounce. Something like Blech. You see, Jewish identity is something that we all should be very, very proud of and never, ever shy away from. Yes, it might come in many, many different shapes and forms and styles. And yes, we all exhibit our own type of Judaism in a variety of ways. But no matter how we look at Judaism as a religion, no matter how we each practice and observe that religion, we must all maintain our obligation to affirm our Jewish identities as best we can. And it might be through supporting Israel. It might be through combating anti-Semitism. It might be supporting other Jewish causes or organizations. It might be like living a life like Rabbi Blech. It might be by not being afraid to stand up and speak out or write an essay. It might be like Koch. But it must be some way in which we foster a strong sense of Jewish identity, and that is what we pass on to our children. And in doing so, we remember that very famous mayor of New York City, what he chose for his final resting place. The words of a Jewish martyr, Daniel Pearl, Alav Shalom. My father is Jewish, my mother is Jewish, and I am Jewish. May we never forget, and may we always continue to live by those words. Shabbat Shalom.